Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Let's wait for 3-4 minutes and then we'll start.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello, sir. What is fermions?
What is fermions?
Yes, sir.
Fermions are nothing but they are particles of spin half.
Okay.
So there are mainly two kinds of particles, no? Bosons and fermions.
Okay.
So bosons are spin 1 particle and
Okay.
fermions are spin half particles. Electrons have spin half.
Okay. So we can say the particle which obey
Fermi-Dirac distribution. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So photons are bosons.
Yes.
They have spin 1. Phonons, they are also bosons. They have got spin 0.
Okay. Sir, what actually spins means?
It is actually a quantum mechanical, just like rotation, no?
Yes, sir.
Classical orbital motion, you have a quantum mechanical description of the spin. So it is actually quantum mechanical. It is kind of a rotation.
Okay.
So you sometimes tend to say that, for example, clockwise rotation is spin plus half and anti-clockwise is minus half. The classical analogy, but it is not right actually.
Okay.
Okay. So electron spin can be quantized.
Okay.
So this quantization give you plus half and minus half. Typically you have 50-50. Okay. If it is not, you have equal number of, I mean the probability of spin half plus half and minus half is 50-50. Okay. So for example, magnetism. So magnetism is coming because of the one kind of spin is more. So magnetism is purely a quantum mechanical phenomenon, which is related to spin.
Because I read somewhere that spin is not physically what we are thinking about rotation. It something comes from the they solve some matrix and the value coming from that matrix. I really don't understand what they're trying to say.
No, you can actually you see if you have done this, if you have gone through the Stern-Gerlach experiment, you might have studied this Stern-Gerlach.
No, sir.
That actually first time showed, you know, this spin is quantized, like spin can take two values, plus half and minus half. So that is what we normally say the quantum numbers. We have N, L, ML and MS.
Yes, sir.
So these are the 4 quantum numbers which
Yes,
decides the levels,
location.
electronic states.
Yes, sir.
So that is actually based on that, the spin.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So what we are discussing is fermions. Electrons are nothing but fermions, but these are Dirac fermions actually, not the normal fermions. Because why Dirac fermions? Because they obey Dirac, Hamiltonian. They follow Dirac spectrum.
Yes, sir.
So that is a major difference. So there is another entity called Majorana fermions also.
Okay.
So I don't know. I don't want to explain that. So, but there is also something called Majorana fermions. So that happens between a topological insulator and superconductor. Maybe I don't want to discuss this now, but to your information, that is also there. Okay.
So is there any restriction on the value of the value of the spin, like half and 1 0? It can't be 3/4 or something.
The fundamental spins are 1/2 and plus 1/2 minus 1/2.
Okay.
You can have total spin summation, sum over many spins, that you can have. For
Okay.
example, if you have system more than one electron, I mean many times you have, no, like you have a higher Z atom.
So your voice is not clear.
Oh, voice is not clear.
Yes, no. What you just explained is I don't.
Oh, okay. So if you have an atom which has more than one electron,
Yes, sir.
so then you can have more than, the spin, the total spin is summation over each spin.
Okay.
So you can have more than, like you can have more than half if you have mini electron system. The total spin S, capital S, for example, that is S1 plus S2 plus S3. I mean, plus, if you have many electron system.
Okay, okay.
Is it audible? What I said right now? Hello?
Yes.
Was it audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Okay. Okay, in between, was there any problem in between? Because, okay, so I think if you have any other questions, you can ask. Otherwise, we can just start. We can continue from where we have, just finished. Anyway, we were discussing about the chiral tunneling. So these are nothing but these are fermions. Okay, these are Dirac fermions, what we were discussing. So, but there is an important, quantity called chirality. So these electrons are chiral also. Not only they are fermions, but they are chiral. Means they have something called pseudospin. In addition to the normal spin, okay, spin half, they also got additional degree of freedom. So this is called the pseudospin. So we were trying to understand its conservation during transport. Okay, if you do a transport measurement with graphene junctions like PN junction or PNP junctions, then this chirality or this pseudospin plays an important role, and it has to be conserved because the backscattering, we say that there are no other potentials which causes backscattering. So then this pseudospin has to be conserved. Okay, if it cannot conserve, that transport is not allowed. This is forbidden. Just like your optical selection rules, whether this transport, whether this has any probability or not. So here also in the quantum transport also we have the same situation, that whether this pseudospin is conserved or not. If it is conserved, just like the case of single layer graphene, then we have a transmission probability of 1 for normal incidence. Okay. Same way, now we are going to understand the bilayer case. In bilayer graphene also we have sublattices. We have actually, in fact, in addition to the 2 bottom layer graphene sublattices, we have 2 more from the top. So that is what the bilayer graphene is. So we have total 4 number of sublattices. And we also understand how we can get the energy band diagram. So let me share the screen. So can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. So if you see this, okay, maybe I expand it. Yeah. So this is what we were discussing. Okay. We were discussing about single layer graphene, the transport, when you make a junction with single layer graphene. So here it is, this is a PN junction, for example. This is a PN junction with a sharp potential. Okay, and we said, so this is how the transport look like. The pseudo spin has to be conserved. For every electron, you can find a hole of the same momentum, and it is transported without any scattering. So that gives a transmission probability of 1. So these are normally incident electrons. Okay, the probability is different from 1 if it is incident at an angle. So we assume that this is incident at an angle 0. This is normal incidence. Then the transmission probability is 1. Okay, so you can also think this single layer graphene as kind of particles of spin half. Just like your real spin, the pseudo spin is also like half. So you have, for example, this branch has up spin and this branch has down spin. Okay, so plus sigma and minus sigma. So in the conduction band itself, you have two kinds of pseudo spins, plus sigma and minus sigma. Okay, so that is all about the single layer graphene. So now, if you come to bilayer graphene, there is a difference. What is the difference? The difference is that the pseudo spin is not now depend on the branches, but it only depends on the band index alpha. So for example, the conduction band has a pseudo spin of +1, say +1, and then the valence band electron has a pseudo spin of -1. Okay, this is because we have learned if the wave from the wave function that electrons in bilayer graphene has a phase of 2 pi. Okay, so if you see the wave function of single layer graphene, the agent function of single layer graphene, the phase of the electron is pi. This is called the Berry phase. Okay, so in the case of bilayer graphene, electrons has got a phase of 2 pi when it actually revolves around a circular path. So I can also explain that one here. So, but for the time being, just understand that electrons in bilayer graphene has a phase of 2 pi, whereas electrons in single layer graphene has a phase of pi. We have discussed in the class before, but if you cannot remember, this is what actually in the case of bilayer graphene, it is actually double. Okay, so so then we can also think that if I say that electrons in graphene is like a spin half, behaving like a spin half particles, then I can think of the same consideration. I can say that electrons in bilayer graphene has a spin of 1. Okay, so this analogy actually makes sense in that way. So we have now pseudo spin +1 for the conduction band and pseudo spin -1 for the valence band. Okay, so now if you construct a junction, PN junction, then how does the transport look like? Okay, so now from this analogy, the simple schematic, you can see that this has a pseudo spin of -1. So obviously the transport is forbidden because you cannot conserve the pseudo spin. So you expect that the transmission probability in the case of bilayer graphene, where the electrons are normally incident, okay, the transmission probability is expected to be 0. All of the electrons are going to be reflected, and your reflection coefficient is going to be 1. So this is a naive analogy I have given here, but we can understand because I have even given you this question in the midsem exam. So what is the helicity or chirality? So let me explain to you. So we know what is the the Hamiltonian for a bilayer graphene. So this is what the kinetic energy term. I hope you remember, no? So 1 by 2m 0 px minus I py all square px plus I py all square 0, where p is are the momentum. So it's just like your classical p square by 2m. Okay, but we have a matrix here. Then this is your kinetic energy term, and this is the potential energy. If you consider the translation invariance along the y direction, this one is nothing but v of x. Okay, instead of v of xy, it is v of x. So now the wave function, you can find it easily. The wave function, the agent function for this, if you assume v is 0 or this is h minus v, then you solve for the wave function, then you can get the wave function as something like this, or something 1 by square root of a. So root of 2, you write as 1 by square root of a. E raised to minus I phi k plus or minus 1 e raised to I phi k. This you can easily find, because if you substitute like px is equal to modulus of p cos theta and py is equal to modulus of p sin theta. We have done it before. You can just substitute and find the wave function. So that comes like this. So now you can also change this way, because we have done many times this way. See, you can just multiply this one with e raised to I phi k. Then this become 1 and this becomes e raised to 2I phi k. Okay. So now if you compare this one with the single layer graphene, you will see that this is actually 2 times. In the case single layer graphene, this is 1 plus or minus 1 e raised to I phi k. Okay. So there is a difference of, I mean, it is 2 times. The phase is 2 times of the single layer graphene electrons or the particles in single layer graphene is half of the phase of the electrons in bilayer graphene or particles in bilayer graphene. Okay, so that is a major difference. So you can easily compare this one. The phase has double now. Okay, so now if you write the Hamiltonian, so this looks like this. You can actually substitute here. So this is the equation look like. The eigenvalue will be plus or minus 1, and this is the k dot sigma. So you can actually change this one. I have simply written in terms of the chirality or helicity operator. The helicity operator is defined like this: H is k dot sigma divided by modulus of k. I hope you remember this. So you can rewrite this one, okay, because this is a matrix, isn't it? You can split this as Pauli spin matrices and then k also, because px is nothing but minus px is h cross k, kx, px. So this is kx sigma x plus ky sigma y. You get whole square. So you can change this one and you can write like this. And you see, actually, if you compare this one with the single layer graphene, in single layer graphene case, we had k dot sigma divided by k into wave function. So that is plus or minus 1 times the wave function. Okay. So this is the, if you define helicity operator this way, then we have h square. This is h hat square. This is helicity operator square. Psi equal to plus or minus psi. Okay. So this is what I expected, that this is not simply. So now if you try with the Hamiltonian, so Hamiltonian only commutes with h square, not h. It commutes with h square because we have square everywhere. In the case of bilayer graphene, okay, because it's parabolic now. It's not linear anymore. The band diagram, band structure is not linear anymore, but it is parabolic. Okay. So this parabolic band structure gives you the helicity operator square. H square is plus or minus 1, not h. In the case of single layer graphene, it is h psi that will give you plus or minus 1 psi. So essentially h is commuting with h square, not h is not commuting with h. Okay, so for single layer graphene this is the case, h and h. So now you understood actually. So this is h square. Okay, you have square, so that is why you are getting something like this. So you only for band index, only for conduction band you have +1 and valence band you have -1. Okay, so that is the explanation. So I think I have given you a good background about these spins, pseudo spins. So now let's write the same way, what we have done for single layer graphene. So we have a p-n junction and the electrons are incident from the left side on the potential step V0. Okay, so this is what we have. So we have, either you can write in the space, real space, the sublattice space, or you can write in the reciprocal space also. Okay, so I invariably use this one. So you can easily change, because you can always transform. You do a Fourier transform, you can always transform from one space to the other space. So this is the equation. This is the simple eigenvalue equation. Okay, so then if you substitute for the wave function, we can just write in the real sublattice space. So you multiply with the e raised to ik dot r, and this is what our amplitudes, the complex amplitude for one kind of sublattice and the other kind of sublattice. See, actually, essentially, in the case of bilayer graphene, you can think of the 4 sublattices as 2 sublattices with a phase of 2 times. Okay, instead of 4 sublattices, you have 2 sublattices with double spin, the phase double as that of the singular graphene. Okay, so you can actually simplify this. So now you can also write, because of the translation invariance along the y direction, you can also write this way, psi of x in the e raised to iky y. You agree? We can write this way. Okay, so now you substitute. You have the Hamiltonian and you have the wave function. So now if you substitute, you can simplify this. So see, now you get square, because you have to you have the square in the Hamiltonian, in the px and py. See, you have square here. Okay, so that one give you the equation as. So now if you rearrange 2m by, I think these are the classical equations. So Schrodinger equation, when you solve, you get this one, isn't it? 2m by h bar square e minus v. I have taken a potential, so we can substitute for the barrier as v is equal to v0. If it is outside, it is v0, but on the junction, on the barrier or junction, a step, we have value for v0, v, that is v0. So that is nothing but, you can simply say this is typically what we use. This one is nothing but k square. So now this will be k raised to 4. Okay, so this is an equation which has 4 root. So this has 4 solutions. So the solutions will be something like this: exponential plus or minus ikxx and 2 Evanson waves, exponential plus or minus kxx. You can, I think, yeah, I hope you can solve this equation. These are not difficult. You will find that there are 4 solutions for this. Okay, there are 4 solutions. Typically you have, so if this is k square, typically you have 2. Okay, but here now k raised to 4. So you have 2 more solutions. So that is actually Evanson waves. You can find it easily. Okay, so now let me open the other one. Yeah, so you can write the wave functions something like this. See, this psi1 is nothing but Psi1 is actually corresponding to this. Okay, corresponding to the corresponding to 1. So for the other one, we will write as Psi2. Okay. So this is Psi1 is, see, you can see there are 4. There are 4, and then so this is nothing but psi of x into e raised to iky x. Iky y it should be, not x. So for Psi2, again we have the other one. Okay. So and then e raised to iky y. So these are simply, I'm not going through this. It's not that straightforward. So you have to have simplifications. Okay. So what you get, so you have the wave functions. So what you finally get is an equation. So you can solve this and find the, so same way, because we can first find the reflection coefficient R and then substitute, and then you can get your T, 1 minus R square. So under the condition that your energy of the electron is much smaller than the barrier height V0, you will get something like this. The transmission coefficient, the transmission probability is E by V0 sin square 2 phi. So this will give you for phi is equal to 0, T is 0. So I explained to you that in the case of bilay graphene, because we have Evanston waves, so ideally speaking, this has to be this, inside this barrier you have Evanston waves, and then K, for example, if K is the wave vector here, then here this is the holes inside the barrier has IK. Okay, so then it is not possible to have the transport. So we say this is forbidden. So this transport is forbidden because the propagating wave has to convert to an Evanston wave here. Okay, so then this is actually forbidden because there is no pseudospin conservation. All right, so that is why your transmission coefficient is equal to 0 in the case of bilay graphene for normal incident electrons. So this is what you get from equation you get, but naively you can understand that this electron has to, this if K is the wave vector, then inside this electron, the holes has a wave vector of IK. Or if I say, if I have vector IK here is e raised to IKX, then here it is simply kx, e raised to kx, the holes. Okay, so then it cannot propagate because there is no conservation. So I hope you will differentiate this from the quantum tunneling phenomenon, because in the case of quantum tunneling, typical quantum tunneling, what you have is you have an electron with a wave function, and it exponentially, so inside this we have something like Evanston wave, and they exponentially decay. Okay, and this one actually, the wave function at the other side of the barrier, if I consider this as a barrier, then the wave function outside of the barrier actually depends on the width of the barrier and the height. If I have a very thick barrier, my transmission coefficient is going to be 0. All right, so you have to, so here what we are discussing is essentially, we don't have a like a typical barrier here. We have kind of PN junction. We have a PN junction, not like So typical quantum tunneling is discussed under the condition that we have a barrier here. There are no particles inside. There are no carriers inside. But in this tunneling, what we are discussing is we have created a barrier, but we have particles inside. Okay, we have particles inside like holes. In this barrier, in this step, we have holes here. But now the electron wave function, electron momentum is not matching with the hole momentum. It cannot transport. So this is purely based on the conservation of pseudospin. So this is actually forbidden because it doesn't follow the conservation of pseudospin. So you have to distinguish this from the typical quantum tunneling. Okay, in the typical quantum tunneling case, you don't have any particles inside. You don't have any particles inside. All right. So we have Evanston waves. So now here, if you see, so whatever we are discussing is that the transmission probability doesn't care what is the height and what is the width. The transmission probability, irrespective of that, the transmission probability is 1 in the case of single layer graphene. And here in the case of bilayer graphene, irrespective of whatever the characteristic of the barrier or the step, it is not transmitted because the pseudospin is not conserved. Okay. So this is what we fairly wanted to discuss. So I said that T is equal to 0 in the case of bilayer graphene. It's completely reflected. Okay, so there are no states for the electron to propagate. So again, you can get for other angles for phi not equal to 0, you can again have the resonance conditions. So that is basically because of the interference of the waves inside the barrier. Okay, it can go back and forth. So this is also important that for any other angle, the transmission there is a finite transmission probability. For phi not equal to 0, there is a transmission probability. That is what this equation says. For phi different from 0, there is a finite transmission probability. So if there is a transmission inside the barrier, then there is a chance of interference also. So that is why you get this pattern. So different angles. So this oscillation, this is called the Fabry-Perot. So this is what we have here. Yeah, so we have here for bilayer graphene, we have. So see, there is no transmittance for bilayer case for normal incidence, but you can have resonances. So these resonances are coming because of the Fabry-Perot interference. The electrons inside the so if I say instead of electron, if I say holes inside the barrier, the whole wave functions, they interfere. The forward moving and backward moving wave functions interfere, and then that give you the resonance. Okay, so you can have different barrier height. So this blue and red indicates different barrier height, and you can have the resonance condition satisfied. Okay. So I think that is all about the chiral tunneling. Okay, so this is very different actually. The tunneling in the case of the chiral tunneling is very different from the quantum tunneling which we understand, isn't it? So this is very different because this is actually all followed the principle of conservation of pseudospin. So if pseudospin is conserved, for example, in the case of single layer graphene, then the transmission coefficient is 1. Whereas in the case of bilayer graphene, this is not conserved. We don't have any states inside the barrier. Okay. So then this is not allowed. So the transmission probability is 0. Okay. So this is what all about our chiral tunneling. Do you have any questions? You can also write at the, I think the chat session, no? If you have any questions, you can, yeah, you can write it down in the chat session. I think yes, it's possible, isn't it? Then I can see. So now let me go to the, so far we were discussing about the PN junctions, the PNP junctions, PN junctions. So we understood that this is like a lens, okay? But so many physics and even applications can also be realized, provided we have very good quality graphene, and then we have a control on the junction parameters, okay? So many times it is possible that, you know, the good quality, the good properties of graphene is greatly altered by the addition of, you know, gates, for example, electrodes. So these are all going to be very much influential in the properties of graphene. So now let's see one beautiful example of graphene, where graphene can form a Schottky barrier with a semiconductor. I hope many of you understand what is a Schottky barrier. So Schottky barrier is nothing but just like ohmic contact. So ohmic contact is formed between two materials, okay? And there is a matching interface, matching condition. Like for example, the conductivity is perfectly matched, or the Curie density. Conductivity is also related to Curie density, or the Fermi level. Essentially, I should say the chemical potential has to be matched, okay? If you bring two materials, if the chemical potentials are not very different in these two materials, the chemical equilibrium, under chemical equilibrium conditions, they can form different kinds of interfaces, okay? So simplest one is the ohmic contact, ohmic interface. So where we have the Ohm's law, V is equal to I into R. But we can have other kinds of interface also. An example is Schottky barrier. So there is a barrier is formed between two materials. Obviously, there is a problem with these two materials. The conductivity is different. The chemical potentials are different. That is why there is a barrier between these two materials. Okay. And now we are taking an example of graphene. But before that, let me at least discuss what is a Schottky barrier. Then I'll come to this. Okay. Because I assume that some of you might not, you know, aware of what is this. So let me discuss this one. So this is what the schematic. So what I have here is a metal. Okay, I have metal, for example, gold or silver, and I am trying to place this on top of semiconductor. So this is a semiconductor. Okay, for example, silicon. So I hope some of you, I mean, at least many of you understand what is N-type semiconductor. So if I take N-type semiconductor, in N-type semiconductor, the doping is done extensively so that the Fermi level is close to the conduction band. So there is an extensive electron doping. So that is what N-type semiconductor means. The Fermi level is in intrinsic semiconductor. If you don't have any doping, intrinsic semiconductor, the Fermi level is the middle of the conduction and valence band. Oh, sorry, this is EV. EC, this is the conduction band, and EV is the valence band. So in the intrinsic semiconductor, EF is at the middle of EC and EV. Okay. But in the case of N-type semiconductor, EF is close to the conduction band. So now I'm trying to form a junction. I'm trying to form an interface with a metal like gold and semiconductor like silicon. N-type semiconductor like N-type semiconductor like silicon. Okay. So now this is the picture. This is the band diagram. So now what is this phi m? So this is nothing but is the work function. So work function is nothing but if you have metal, it is actually the energy required to remove the electron from the metal surface to the vacuum. Vacuum means far from the surface, so that there is no interaction with the surface. So if I say this is my vacuum level, then so this is the work function. So work function is defined with respect to the vacuum level. Vacuum is a point where there are no interactions with the surface. Okay, if you take electron far from the surface, that is the point that is called the vacuum level. So this is the work function for a metal. So I denote this as phi m. So work function of the metal. So this is defined with respect to the Fermi level. Okay. So below this we have electrons. So it's the Fermi level defines the occupied and the unoccupied states. So you have electrons, completely filled electrons. There are no electrons above this level, Fermi level. So now in the case of semiconductor, so again the same work function is defined with respect to the Fermi level or the chemical potential. So in the case of semiconductor, we usually say this is chemical potential instead of Fermi level. Okay. Anyway, chemical potential, Fermi level tell you about the number. Okay, it is about the number. So whenever you bring these two materials, there should be some chemical equilibrium. Okay, the number there should not be an excess thing. So always the number should be equal. Okay, so this is what is known as the chemical equilibrium condition. So again, in the case of semiconductor, you can define the work function with respect to the vacuum level. So I denote this as phi s. Okay, so this is what the work function for the semiconductor. So this is the picture. This is the picture before any contact. So I have a metal, I have a semiconductor, N-type semiconductor. So now make a junction with these two materials. So now I brought my metal in contact with a semiconductor. So in contact with N-type semiconductor, N-type silicon. Okay. So now what happens? So now metal has lots of electrons. Okay. And the metal Fermi level is down here. And this was, and the semiconductor Fermi level somewhere here. So what will happen? You have excess electrons. The Fermi level has to, so Fermi level has to match. Okay. Fermi level has to match. Now, in the case of metals, the number of electrons is too large. It is like sea of electrons. Even if you drop few electrons, nothing will happen to the Fermi level. So Fermi level of metal is very difficult to change. Okay. But you can easily change the Fermi level of semiconductor. So remember, for metals, you cannot change the Fermi level. So now you think about graphene. Can you change the Fermi level of graphene? Yes, you can change, because graphene is not a metal, but it is semi-metal and it is thin. So if you take a metal, for example, and you make it very thin, you can actually change, but not to a very large extent, but you can. But typically, if you take a bulk metal, the Fermi level is not changed. Okay. I'm talking about a constant temperature. Even temperature also changes a small amount. At constant temperature, how can you change the Fermi level? So Fermi level will be changed. For example, semiconductor easily changes. So you remove electron, donate electrons to the metal. Okay, you donate electrons to the metal. So electrons from the conduction band goes to the metal side. So what happens at the interface? So now the Fermi level has to go down, so that you have chemical equilibrium. Okay, the Fermi level has to align across the interface. So if it has to come down, that means moving Fermi level down means you have to remove electrons. You already doped electrons, so that the Fermi level moved from the middle to close to the conduction band. So now you have to do the other way. You have to bring the Fermi level down. So electrons now transfer from semiconductor to the metal. Okay, so now what happens to the interface? Let's see. So at the interface, once you transfer electrons from the conduction band to this side, so you have, in the case of n-type semiconductor, you have donors here. So you have donors which are positively charged. So now your positively charged donors will create a barrier. The potential has now gone up at the interface. Okay. So there is a potential barrier now created. On the metal side, nothing happens. It is not affected. There is not even a barrier created at the metal side, but only the barrier is created at the semiconductor side. So this is what the Schottky barrier. This is not the Schottky barrier. So these are typically the semiconductor metal junctions. Okay. So now this is known as the barrier height. So the barrier height is with respect to the Fermi level of the metal and the conduction band. Okay, it's the barrier height, and this is the contact potential. This is the, so this Q times V0. Okay, so V0 is the contact voltage, and this is the contact potential, Q in times V0. Okay, so whenever you bias it, so whenever you do a IV measurement, you typically can change this. Okay, you can change slightly this one, but this one is not very easy to change. Okay, that is why you in under two bias conditions like forward bias and reverse bias, so you can make the, so you can apply a potential across the interface. So you have a metal and a semiconductor, and depending upon the polarity, whether you apply positive potential here or you apply negative potential with respect to this, it end up in two kinds of biases, a forward bias and reverse bias. So now the current, in one case, what you're trying to do, you're trying to reduce this height. Okay, and the other direction, you're trying to increase the height, the contact potential. So you have very asymmetric IV characteristic, or we say it is rectification of the current. Okay, so this is what the current relationship look like, current voltage relationship look like. Okay, so this is known as the Richardson-Dushman equation. Not your usual Dushman in Hindi. Okay, this is the scientist name Dushman. So current, in the current voltage characteristic, you see there are two terms. One term actually, so you can actually, whenever you have a barrier, you can always discuss the transport in terms of Boltzmann distribution or Boltzmann transport. So this is ideally essentially a Boltzmann transport scenario, because you have a barrier. So whenever a barrier is there, so there is an activation energy involved. So you have exponential terms. So you see, so this is what the Boltzmann contribution. So it is exponential QV bias. I say my applied voltage, that is known as the bias voltage, V bias, divided by eta d kBT minus 1. Okay, this minus 1 is here, exponential this term minus 1. So where eta d is actually the ideality factor. I'll explain to you what is this. This actually is a measure of the quality of the interface. Okay. So now you also have a barrier here. Typically this is not affected much. Okay. Whenever you change a bias, you are only affecting this one. So this is considered to be at a constant temperature. This is considered to be a constant. But in the case of graphene, you can also change this one. Not only this one, you can change this one. In semiconductor case, you can't change this. Okay, you can't change this much. But in the case of graphene, you can change this. So you So typical equations, if you see in semiconductor, this look like some constant into exponential, this one, -1. Okay, so A is, so here this one, A is the area of the junction, area of the Schottky junction, and A star is the Richardson constant, and T is the temperature. Okay, so it's thermally driven actually. It's thermally driven because there can be, so whenever you apply voltage, the electrons can cross the barrier, they can jump. So temperature has an influence. Okay, so temperature has an influence. So this is sometimes known as the thermionic emission. So with temperature, for example, a filament, the electron, if you heat a filament, you can have electron emission. Okay, so you can have electron emission. So there you have a barrier. So then electron has to cross the barrier. The temperature is the provides the energy. So that energy helps the electron to escape the barrier. So you have thermionic emission. Okay, so here also for the conduction, you can have temperature also here. Temperature can influence the escape or jump, the jump of electrons over the barrier. So you can use bias, temperature, and also you can change the barrier height. So these are the different parameters you can play with to increase the current. Okay, so the current, so the electronic or Hall currents can be controlled by 3 parameters. Okay, temperature, phi b, V bias. So these are the 3 parameters. Okay, so now let me come to, so I hope you understand what is the Schottky barrier in general. So this is actually a junction between semiconductor and a metal. So now instead of the typical metal, if you take graphene, then this is known as the graphene barrister. Why it is barrister? Can anyone tell me? Why is it called barrister? Why is it barrister? I said it is graphene barrister. So barrister means I can change the, it's a variable barrier device. The barrister is nothing but barrier variable device. You can vary the barrier height. Okay, in contrast to the typical Schottky barriers. Typical Schottky barrier is a 2-terminal device, but graphene barrister is a 3-terminal device because you can change the barrier height by using a gate. So it is like a FET, similar to FET, but you can change the barrier height using a gate terminal. So in addition to the 2 terminals, in typical Schottky junctions, you have plus and minus 2 terminals. But in the case of graphene barrister, you have one more terminal, that is a gate. So then that is why it is called the 3-terminal device. Okay, and this 3rd terminal, that is a gate, which is used to modify the properties, modify the barrier height. So essentially we know that, I explained to you that in the case of metals, it is very hard to change the Fermi level. But in the case of graphene, you can change the Fermi level. Therefore, the work function, because work function is defined with respect to the Fermi level. The work function is nothing but is a Fermi level with Fermi level with respect to vacuum. So work function tuning is essentially tuning of the Fermi level position. So that you can do, that we understand. We can move the Fermi level up and down. We can make it N-type or P-type by using a gate. Okay. So now interesting thing is, so I'm discussing everything based on the science paper. So this is the paper that's been published in Science. Okay, this is from this is from Samsung, Korea. So this is the title of the graphene barrister. Okay, so three terminal device. So you can control the Schottky barrier height, and this is how it look like. Okay, I can send you this paper, and you can go through this. So essentially, you have a single layer graphene, okay, and a source and drain, just like normal Schottky barriers. And then in addition to that, we have a top gate. So this is a metal gate on top, and there is a gate oxide. Okay, so this actually controls the work function, controls the Fermi level position in graphene. So graphene is in contact with the silicon. See, this is silicon, the blue. So now graphene silicon interface, that's what we are trying to understand. So now, how good this interface? If you take a simple silicon, it easily oxidizes because there are dangling bonds. There are unsatisfied bonds. Okay, just like unsatisfied souls. There are unsatisfied bonds which takes oxygen from the atmosphere, and it easily forms oxide. So typically 3 nanometer of silicon dioxide is easily formed. Okay, so in industry, what people typically do is passivate the silicon using hydrogen. So this is hydrogen passivated silicon. Okay, so that actually takes care of this issue. So you have hydrogen passivated silicon interfacing with graphene, and graphene is chemically inert, it doesn't react. So what you have is a perfect interface between graphene and silicon. Okay, so this interface is very sharp. We can even check the quality of the interface, but this experiment actually made sure that there are no other reaction layers between silicon and graphene. So there are no other interface layers. Okay, there are no other reaction layers in between the graphene and silicon. So we can take two different kinds of silicon. We can have N-type silicon or P-type silicon. So depending upon that, we can have N-type graphene barrister or P-type graphene barrister. Okay. So now let me go to my note. So this is what. So now I hope you understand that what is speciality of graphene, because graphene, you can tune the work function. So you have a possibility of changing the on-off ratio. Okay, typically Schottky barriers doesn't give high on-off ratios, but you can enhance the barrier height by changing the barrier height by tuning the Fermi level. So let me show you some of the results from that paper. So if you take a P-type graphene barrister, that means the graphene is placed on top of P-type silicon. Okay, you can place it. What I have explained is N-type silicon. So what you get is something like this. Okay, you have, this is a forward bias condition. Forward bias condition means the N junction is connected to N negative, and the metal, the other side, is connected to the positive. So under forward bias condition, you have huge current, but under reverse bias condition, the current is very small. Okay. So now this is important. Just 1 minute. So this actually tell you something. So this is the low voltage region. So this low voltage region gives you the junction resistance. Okay, the quality of the junction. So if it is linear, then that is the best quality junction you have. So here when I say ideality factor 1.1, this it's an indication that the interface between silicon and graphene is of the highest quality. So in these experiments, they have made 2000 devices on a 6-inch wafer. And they found this ideality factor actually varies from 1.1 to 4, almost 4. Okay. So if you get close to 1, that means this is the best quality. The interface is very clean. Okay. So this is the way typically people check the quality of the Schottky barrier, Schottky junction. So at low voltage, you should get this ideality factor as 1. All right. So in this example, the gate voltage is 0. So there is no gate voltage. We only have, so this is a typical Schottky barrier, the semiconductor metal Schottky barrier without tuning the barrier height. So your gate voltage is 0. And from this you can, so I can show you something here. Yeah, this is what I am showing you. Okay. So they have done some TEM, transmission electron microscopy, and show from here that there is no interfacial layer. You know, there's a graphene. Really hard to see actually because it's already very thin. They have made 2000 devices. Okay. So this is what typically it looked like. You see, under forward bias, and this is the reverse bias. Okay. So in one case, so we have discussed this. So in one case, you are trying to reduce this barrier. So this is QV0 minus V bias in forward bias, but in the reverse bias, you are actually trying to increase this. So QV0 plus V bias. Okay. So that is actually increase in the barrier height. So that gives you very small currents. So now, where am I? Yeah. So this is what the result is. So this is actually for P-type graphene varistor. So now if I, so this is what this equation is very useful because there are lots of information hidden here. We'll come to this, but the important thing is this is strongly dependent on temperature. See, the current is strongly dependent, T square. So it's strongly dependent on temperature. So your current, whatever the current you are measuring through this junction is strongly dependent on the temperature. Okay. So this is very useful in some sense because you can use temperature to increase the current, like in a bulb. Okay. Or in a scanning electron microscope. Old scanning electron microscopes, what they use, they heat the filament and the electrons are emitted, and which is collimated to, collimated, and then you can use these collimated electrons for imaging. All right. So in old days, what we have is if you take a metal, then its work function is very large, isn't it? So for example, so this is the work function for a metal. So the work function is something like 5 electron volt, which is quite large. So you can convert this one in terms of temperature. So if you want to have electron emission from a metal, you need to heat to very high temperatures. Okay. Very high temperatures to have electron emission. But now you see, now when you, so this is the barrier height in a sense. If you only have metal, this is what the energy it takes to emit electrons. But now when you make an interface with a semiconductor, see, your barrier height has reduced so much. So now this, if I just talk about this barrier, this is nothing but this something like 0.5 electron volt, 0.3 to 0.5 electron volt. So now your temperature, the temperature you need to provide is much smaller. So that's why actually these metal semiconductor junctions are very useful, because it actually change the way electron guns are manufactured. So metal semiconductor junctions can change the barrier height. So now instead of the work function of the metal, instead of the phi m, now the important parameter is phi b. Okay. So now let's see. So now this is one of, now only problem is, it's not a problem actually. The problem, what I'm saying is, if you want thermally stable, for example, even though your gun should be thermally stable, that means even there is fluctuation, temperature fluctuation, it should not affect the electron emission. You should have, for example, if you want to image something, image a sample, you don't want, or if you want to pattern a sample, you don't want your electron current should change. Electron current should be very stable over, like, days. So this temperature fluctuation can be a problem, because when you are writing something, when you are imaging something, your image can be very different with the kind of current you are using. So the temperature stability or thermal stability is an important factor if you are talking about electron guns. Okay, electron guns. So that I will talk about later. How can we stabilize this? But generally, this emissions, the Schottky barrier is very susceptible to temperature. Okay, if this is the kind of emissions, is the kind of transport we are looking. If this is actually essentially, this transport is actually over the barrier, is a jump. Okay, so this is also known as the thermionic emission. So now let me come to graphene baryster. So we said we are going to replace the metal with a graphene. So we have a graphene here. So now I assume that my Fermi level is here. Okay, and this is my n-type semiconductor. Okay, maybe I have not drawn very accurately, but this is an n-type. I'm taking an n-type semiconductor. Okay, so this is n-type graphene baryster. So now I have top gate. You can use back gate also. That is why initially I thought I will just draw like a back gate, but in that paper I found they only used top gate. So let's only use one gate, okay, not two. I mean two dielectric actually. If you are using a back gate, typically you have silicon dioxide and then hexagonal boron nitride. Okay, but in this paper, what they have used is just, see the kind of voltage, gate voltage they are using is small. So this is typically achievable with a top gate. The back gate, normally the back gate voltages are very high, something like 50 to 100 volts if you want to tune your Fermi level. But you can use the top gate because it is thin, and then you can also use the dielectric constant, high dielectric constant of aluminum oxide, because it is around 8. So then your capacitance is larger. So this is the top gate. So we formed an interface. So this is how the structure look like. So this is, if I say this is my reference voltage, this is my 0. Okay, I did not apply any gate voltage. So this is what it looked like. Okay, so just like the normal Schottky barrier, electrons, see the Fermi level was here initially. Fermi level was here initially. Then Fermi level moved down, and then because of the transfer of electrons, you have what is left here is the donors, positively charged donors, that creates the positive potentials, the barrier. So barrier is created similar to what we have, semiconductor metal junctions. So this is the barrier height. So now you apply positive gate voltage. So in positive gate voltage, what you can do? So when you apply positive gate voltage, instead of this square potential, the shape of the potential also changes. So it will be something like triangular. Okay, remember this, the shape of the potential is not anymore square kind of potential, but it is kind of triangular, okay, slanted. So now you can also think, if I apply too much voltage, okay, then I can bend this one too much, isn't it? So then I can use this thin regions as a tunnel barrier. Okay, this is one of the hint I am giving you, that instead of over the barrier, over the barrier emissions or transport, you can also think of situations where, I'm just giving you a hint, not exactly the same, but if you apply very large voltage, very large electric fields, you can actually change the shape of the potential barrier. And you can use this one, even though you have a very thick barrier, you can actually have tunneling probability. If you apply very strong electric fields, you can change the shape of the barrier. So in this case, a positive gate voltage is applied, okay, and then what happens? Positive gate voltage obviously moves the Fermi level up. The Fermi level is up now. So now up means the barrier height is now reduced. Okay, the barrier height is reduced, so the electron will see a smaller barrier height. So you have two parameters. You can change either this one or this one, both also. Okay, so what you get is the typical, so this is n type. So this is what the IV curve look like. So you have voltage along the x-axis. Sorry, I did not write here. Voltage along the x-axis and current along the y-axis. You see, when you increase the gate voltage, so the current actually increases. Even for a smaller bias voltage, your current is larger now. So that means you have moved your Fermi level up. So you have a small barrier. Okay. So now in the opposite case, so now this is also an important point, that how much Fermi level you can shift. What is the work function change you can induce? So that all depends on the carrier density you can induce using a gate. So for example, in the case of graphene, you can induce up to 500, single layer graphene, you can induce up to 500 millivolt. So this is because of the conical, the linear dispersion allows you to move the Fermi level faster than the parabolic. In the case of parabolic dispersion, this change will be smaller. But because of the linear dispersion, the Fermi level shift, you can change your Fermi level much larger. So in the case of single layer graphene, you can change up to 0.5 electron volt or 500 milli electron volt. Okay, and in the opposite, if you apply negative gate voltages with respect to this, so then what happens? You are actually making it p-type. Okay, you are making graphene p-type. So now your Fermi level is here. So you see the barrier height. The barrier height has now increased. The barrier has increased too much. So you can actually tune the position of Fermi level or tune the barrier height with a graphene. Okay, with a gate voltage. Sorry, with a gate voltage. Yeah. So you can actually plot, for example, let me show you. Yeah, so you can estimate so by fitting, because we have the general equation, you can fit and find the barrier height. Okay, so this is what the estimated barrier height, phi b. So you see, when you change the gate voltage, so when you apply positive gate voltage, obviously that is what we have discussed. So when you increase your gate voltage, your barrier height actually decreases. This is what you see here. So when you increase the gate voltage, your barrier height decreases. Whereas when you increase negatively, your barrier height increases. So at the same time, you see the Fermi level, because you are inducing more electrons in the positive, with the positive gate voltage. So your Fermi level is moved up, you see. So you almost moved something like maybe 200, yeah, 160 millivolt here. Not too much actually in this case, but you can, in principle, you can move up to 500 millivolt. Okay. Yeah, so actually this picture might be confusing, so don't use this. You know, this something is not very easy to understand, especially this side. But anyway, this picture, this shape of the potential that you can modify. If you apply very high electric field, you can modify the potential shape of the potential. Typically, we consider as square potential, but in this case, we can because of a large electric field, we can modify the shape of the potential. Okay, so you can go through this paper and read more and understand. Okay, but essential, the main points I have already discussed, that you can basically change the, so your on-off ratio, you know, your on-off ratio can be modulated. The on-off ratio, which is actually so you have kind of off position here and on position here. So for a particular bias, you can consider the on-off ratio. So they have achieved something like 10 to the power 5, which is similar to what silicon has. So this is also interesting, isn't it? So you can use the Schottky barrier as kind of switch. Okay. Yeah, so this is almost there. So what I, so this is in continuation of that, the barrier height, which I mentioned here. There is that. Okay. Yeah. So the barrier height. Okay. So I have discussed that you can have thermionic emission. So if you change temperature, the electrons can cross the barrier. Okay. You can change the probability of electrons crossing the barrier. So this is known as the thermionic emission. But you can also, so I also mentioned that this is thermally not very stable because this is very sensitive to temperature. So if you want some thermally stable transport or thermally stable barrier, then the only way is you should not allow the electrons to cross the barrier. Okay, maybe I should say here. So I mean, this is an example, but this is not exactly the same what I'm saying. But if you have a barrier, that's what I'm saying. If you create a barrier, then you can use. So if I say this is my tunnel, this is my junction, this is my junction, and if I modify this junction with a very strong electric field, the strong electric field, instead of jumping over the barrier, I can actually now, because this distance is small now, see this distance is small, essentially electron don't have to jump, but it can actually tunnel through this. So typically the electric field strength is something like 10 to the power 8 volt per meter. Okay, so the electric field is of the order of 10 to the power 8 volt per meter. In the case of graphene junctions, I think we have mentioned already that we understood that we can have very high electric fields. 10 to the power, almost 10 to the power 8, 9, we can easily achieve with thin materials. So if you make a junction, if you make an interface, then you can actually use that interface, and then you can apply very large electric fields, making the carriers tunnel through this. Okay, so typical tunneling, what is that current? The current is actually is proportional to exponential minus 2kd. So there is no temperature term, isn't it? So current is actually proportional to exponential minus 2kd, where d is the barrier, the width of the barrier. So we can use this tunnel barrier to have thermally stable, emission of electrons. So we can use tunnel barriers for the emission of electrons, for the transport of electrons, and they are very thermally stable. Okay, so this is known as Fowler-Nordheim tunneling. So when you apply huge electric fields and change the potential barrier, shape of the potential barrier, and using the change the potential barrier for tunneling, and this is known as the Fowler-Nordheim tunneling. Okay, and this tunneling is actually, so this is also known as the field emission. So nowadays the SEM sources, electron sources are nothing but they are field emission sources. Okay, FESM, it is called the FESM, field emission scanning electron microscopy. So this, in the case of thermonic emission, is very susceptible to temperature, but in the case of tunnel barrier, the emission is insensitive to temperature. So you have very stable electron sources. Okay, so that is the reason this is important actually, because this electron emissions, electron transport is very important, especially for applications. All right, I think for today I have done, I have almost covered. Yeah, so next class I will just cover this also tunneling. Based on the tunneling mechanism, we can also based on 2D materials, we can design tunneling transistors. The same principle what we have discussed just now. Okay, I'll send you before, maybe today itself, then you can go through. So after that we will go to the high frequency transistors and then quantum Hall effect. All right, so this is here I will also discuss the heterostructures, because this is also heterostructures. See, graphene WS2 heterostructures. If you have any questions, please.
Hello.
Yes.
Sir, is it possible to make ohmic contacts with graphene?
Yes, that is possible. Okay, that is a very good question. Yes. Yeah, you are not sleeping at least. All others are sleeping. I don't know whether somebody is sitting there or not. This is the problem with the online mode, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
You can do whatever you want. Okay, so yeah, so where am I? I was this. Okay, so here. Okay, so this point. So now, see, for example, my Fermi level. So this, if it is already matched, the Fermi level position and this one is already matched without moving, without even without transferring the electrons. See, your doping concentration in such a way that if both are actually already matched, then it forms an ohmic contact. You understand?
Okay.
So here my Fermi level is moved too far. Then when I make an interface, then it has to move down. So if you have a small chemical potential differences, then it is like ohmic contact. You understand?
Yes, sir.
The barrier height is really small. It's all about the barrier height.
So sir, that will depend on doping of the silicon.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
So is it possible to tune gate voltage to obtain the ohmic contact? Like possible to change the Fermi level of graphene to obtain the ohmic contact without changing doping of silicon?
Yeah, because see, if you, I'm telling you actually, see, I moved my Fermi level up to this.
Okay.
I don't have any barrier, no, here, barrier. See, I moved my Fermi level here. So this is now ohmic. There is no barrier here.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so you can move your Fermi level so that, I mean, it's all about the matching the Fermi level, the chemical potentials, no? If you have any difference, if the difference is not too large, then you get some contact resistance. That's it. You don't have a, big difference in the transport, the way transport looks. Still, you will get kind of linear IV curve, not non-linear.
So there's a term called Fermi level pinning. So,
Yeah, so that is also yeah, okay. So here, because see, normally pinning happens if you have defect.
yes, sir.
Fermi level is pinned. But fortunately, what they claim is that there are no defects. So there is no Fermi level pinning. That is why they are able to move the Fermi level easily. If you have pinning, then you cannot move it. Yeah, that is a problem actually in semiconductors.
Yes, sir.
Many times this defect actually dominates. Yeah, that's a good question actually. Yes, that's right. See, this is actually metal semiconductor junction, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Typically, graphene metal, normally we make contact on graphene. That is usually metals, no? So metal on graphene is fine. But this is actually metal and the graphene and semiconductors. You understand? So what we are discussing is actually in like a limited region where it is still a Schottky barrier. But in the metal graphene semiconductor also you can have regions where it is ohmic.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we are limiting the discussion to Schottky barrier only.
Okay.
You can have. All right.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So for bilay graphene, you understand actually this is different for bilay graphene. This typically this is for single graphene, isn't it? For bilay graphene, you can also find what is the Fermi level shift. So this is much smaller. Okay, for bilay graphene. All right then. If no more questions, I'm saying bye.
Bye, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.